Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum. Hi, my name is Jet Li, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, and iTunes #1 kids and family podcast. We are so excited. This is the start of STEM Week, a week dedicated to inspiring our kids to love science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And if we can't inspire our kids to love those subjects, at least get them to feel comfortable so they're not afraid of those subjects. We have a wonderful guest to kick off STEM Week. She is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read author, and she is our friend, Jennifer Swanson. Coming to us from Jacksonville in Florida. She is one of our favorite guests, and she is going to become a regular guest here on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Please welcome back scientist extraordinaire, the author of Astronaut, Aquanaut, How Space Science and Sea Science Interact. Here's Jen Swanson. Jen, how are you?
Hi, Jen. I'm great. Thanks for having me. That was a great intro.
I'm happy you got it. I'm glad I didn't lose steam and lose my place halfway through it. I didn't write anything down.
That's awesome.
Well, Jen is back because Jen is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read author. I hadn't had a chance to tell Jennifer that our panel of educators, parents, and kids have reviewed her book, Astronaut, Aquanaut, and they love it. They love it, and it is an official Reading with Your Kids certified great read. And I knew it absolutely was going to be a great read because when Jennifer sent some books up for the evaluation, and the first book that my wife, she picked it up, and she's just, this is going in my classroom. That's it. And I said, well, that's the first hurdle. And so,
you were like, can I read it first before you take it?
I knew the what do they say? The wheels are greased and it's just going to be an easy ride in. So congratulations.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we're really excited because Jen has this great blog that is called STEM Tuesdays, and Jen has agreed to become a regular guest here on the Reading with Your Kids podcast to kind of recreate that blog here on the podcast. So why don't you tell us a little bit about STEM Tuesday, Jen? Okay,
thanks. Well, thanks for having me. We're so excited, and I can talk about STEM and STEAM, because we talk about STEAM books too I can talk about that for hours. So STEM Tuesday was an idea that I came up with, a couple of years ago, because I write middle grade, science books. And when I say middle grade, I don't necessarily mean like 6th through 8th grade. Mm-hmm. So in the publishing world, when you say middle grade, these are actually books that are geared for kids 8 to 12 years old.
Yeah.
And then we have YA books, which would be kids that really are in 6th grade and up. And I looked around, and a lot of my friends write picture books, which is awesome, but that's not what I do. Mm-hmm. And I thought we need to bring some, attention to these amazing middle grade and YA STEM books that are being produced, because they are not the textbooks that we read as kids. We were like, you go look up a turtle, it's like, oh, here's a turtle, he has a shell, all this kind of stuff. I mean, there are some amazing books. One of my favorites is by Sarah Albee, and she wrote this book, I kid you not, it's called Poop Happened, The History of the World from the Bottom Up. I mean, is that the coolest, STEM book title you've ever heard? Mm-hmm. And it literally is the history of how people go to the bathroom and use the bathroom and how sanitation was developed and all this kind of stuff. So that is an amazing title, and it grabs kids' attention. And that's what we wanted to bring attention to, because we know teachers are so overworked. Mm-hmm. And I would go to do my school visits, and I'd tell them about my Astronaut Aquanaut book and my Brain Games book, and they'd say, wow, this is awesome. I want to use it for my students, but I don't know how to put it into the classroom. Mm-hmm. So that's what this blog does. So for those of you that don't know, I'm using the word STEM. I guess I should start by defining that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
STEM actually stands for science, technology, engineering, and math books. You can also put arts in there and come up with STEAM, which we are fully supportive of. It's just, and we cover STEAM books, but STEM Tuesday was just kind of the better name.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
But we do cover STEAM books. And what it is we like to say that STEM books engage, excite, and inspire young and old readers alike. That's kind of our little tag.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm thinking back, and as you're talking about that old school science book talking about a turtle, I remember those books, and when I was very, very young, and I remember being interested in dinosaurs and in the planets, and that really jazzed me when I was a wee tyke, probably before I started going to school. And then I went to school and encountered a lot of those old, this is a turtle, this is the universe, this is the dinosaurs. And I remember very definitely not being a fan of science through high school.
Yes.
And it wasn't, it may have been my senior year in high school. It might have been my freshman year in college, probably college, where I just had to take a science, and I took an earth science. And suddenly, the really weird, goofy professor, threw out the book, and we just started talking about earth and dirt and clouds and rain. And suddenly I was jazzed, and it's like, this stuff is really cool.
Right. And that's exactly what we do with our books. And that's why we want to get the information out there to teachers and to parents and to homeschoolers too, about how they can bring the excitement of books and science to their, and all of STEM to their children. And sometimes they, of course they're going to use the textbook. We're not saying throw out the textbook, but we're saying use these extra books as a way to get kids engaged. And quite honestly, some kids gravitate more towards nonfiction than fiction. And these are, I was the geeky little kid in the corner who just kept asking why, how does that work? And back then, we had a whole thing of encyclopedias. Who had the World Book Encyclopedias? Raise your hand.
I think I had A through R. I don't think my parents did the whole thing.
We had all of them. And then my favorite was the yearbook. So the update is just one book of everything that happened that whole year. But now we have amazing books. And that's kind of where I got the idea for this blog. Of course, I could not do this by myself. So I asked all my friends, I was like, hey, do you guys want to be in this blog with me? And so let me give you the names of all of my author friends. These are most of them are all award-winning STEM authors who do this. They volunteer. We do this all out of love of pretty much STEM books and getting information out there. So, and I'll hand you this link. I'll send you the link so everybody can look them up. But I have Patricia Newman, Nancy Castaldo, Michelle Houtz, Carolyn DeCristofano, Mike Hayes, Heather Montgomery, and Mary Kay Carson. And they're all, like I said, we split this up into weeks because, we're scientists, right? So everything has to be logically structured. So I was trying to how do I make this easy for teachers to grab what they need and go? Because that's what you need, because teachers don't have a lot of time. So each month we have a different theme. So we'll pick the theme for a month. So let's see. For example, our theme in the first month, October 2017, when we started, was zoology. So the first week is a book list where we give you a list of about 8 to 10 different books that have that same theme. And then the next week is a week where we do, it's called In the Classroom. And this is where we take a couple of those books on the list and we actually give the teachers an activity to use in their classrooms. Use this book to do this. And it's not just science class, because these books are for all classes. Sometimes they're for the English language classes. Sometimes they're for use in math classes or history classes. But the two people that we have doing that week are also teachers. So they know how, and there's even, curriculum that it's based upon and so forth. The third week is kind of our fun week because it's science, right? You gotta have fun with it. So, we call it our crafts and resources. And we kind of use these STEM books in out of the box kind of way. So the two people that run this are Heather and Mike, and they are amazing people, but they like to look at science coming at it from different angles. So one time it might be like a research log, so the teachers could use this to show kids how authors are researching books. But my favorite one is they have this section called Out of Left Field. So you never know what they're going to put in there and what connection they make. Sometimes it's like just something current in the news that's happening. Sometimes it's a really funny, did you know this fact? It's like you said, we want to make the science kind of interesting and exciting and off balance a little.
Yeah.
And then the last week is an interview with an actual STEM author. And all you have to do is comment on it, and you're entered for a giveaway of that book. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes we only get like 3 comments. So if you want to win a book, signed a book from the author, just the 4th week of STEM Tuesday, go and comment on the website.
And that is, first off, that's a great prize. Kids love autographs. I mean, my son loves Comic-Con, and he and his friends stand in line for hours and pay hundreds of dollars to have the author sign this book. But to win a free one, to have for your young scientist, your young engineer to have in their room. And joking about my son actually, when he was very young, he had we're at a magic convention, and there's a book that I used to carry in my suitcase just to reference, and he noticed that the author of that book was at the convention. He saw him, and he goes, "Let me take this down and get it autographed." And I said, "Sure." And he went down, and the author was very, very nice and kind, and he autographed it. My son took that book. He had never showed an interest in that particular book. He devoured that book in just a couple of weeks. And suddenly he's a better magician than I ever was. But I love that the list of people that are helping you out. I just interviewed Heather Montgomery last night.
She's awesome.
Bugs Don't Hug. And, yeah, and that is fantastic. You'll be hearing Heather soon on the podcast. She's amazing, and I love her approach to science. It's and just exploration. I think that's what I really found interesting in talking to her is the way she looks at things and the way she gets kids to look at things. It's amazing.
You can see why she's in our 3rd week.
Absolutely.
Kind of out of left field.
Yeah. And the other thing you mentioned, right now we have this great push for STEM and, really pushing kids because our world is becoming so much, more technologically based, and we need technology. We need engineers. We need mathematicians and scientists. But you mentioned the fact that, in schools, we kind of, now you're doing reading at this moment, you're doing math at this moment, you're doing science at this moment, and they're kind of disconnected. Yes. And that was one of the frustrations for me as a kid, as I would go into a class and it's like, how am I ever going to use this? Now, I know now as, looking back as an elderly person, looking back and having my own business, I understood, I needed to know how to do math. And I needed, and even though I'm doing magic on stage, I'm also writing and I'm reading and I'm doing math and I'm booking things, and I need technology to, to use the computer and make the props on stage, and they are connected, and it's frustrating, I'm sure, for kids still that we don't kind of connect, that we're not reading class, reading about what we're studying in science and connecting all the math and all that kind of other kind of, that just boggles my mind why we don't do that.
Right. And I think when you do that, like you said, you're missing kids who you might otherwise capture. Mm-hmm. And, don't get me wrong, teachers have a really tough job
Absolutely.
these days they have 30, I don't know, sometimes 35 kids in a classroom, and they all have different levels or maybe even more than that. But, so that's why what we do with STEM Tuesday was we try to give them things that might capture the kids they're missing. Like, I honestly remember the worst, the one class I got a C in high school, the whole semester was poetry. Oh my God. I was like, because even back then I was like a scientist. I was like, so poetry has to rhyme. Of course, good poetry doesn't
rhyme. Yeah.
But it made me crazy. But there are now, an author like Leslie Bouillon, she does verse and then it's all science. So it's all about science, but it's in verse. Now that would have appealed to me as a kid, because I could have been like, okay, well, it's verse, but it's science, so I'm good. So that's why that's why this was born, because I talked to so many teachers when I went to school visits, and they're like, we didn't know these books existed. We didn't know they're out there. How do we get them? And I was like, oh, well, I'll just create a blog and you just go to the blog and it's all there.
Yeah.
And I talk to homeschoolers too, and they say the same thing, because they're always looking for ways to enhance the curriculum that they use. And they are, a little more out of the box thinkers, because they don't have to be locked into a curriculum necessarily.
Yeah. And I imagine too, for homeschoolers, this is a fantastic resource, because a mom or a dad who's homeschooling their kids may not be all that versed in science or technology or even poetry. But to have a resource like this is like, oh, okay, this isn't so intimidating as it was before.
Right. Well, and you figure most of these books, the middle grade ones, are written to the level of a fifth grader. So even if you're not comfortable with science, these books should be written to a level that you should be able to understand, and that everybody should be able to understand. And not only that, they're fun. Some of them have experiments in these books, and a lot of them have teacher guides separately, like free teacher guides that you can go to the author's website and find out how to use these books. That was just our idea, just to get the word out, because picture books are amazing, and I love picture books, but I think they get a lot of love, and it's hard to find the older readers. And to me, it's great if you're showing a 6-year-old science. They're probably going to love science because they're 6 or 7, but if you can get a 10-year-old kid who purposely picks up a STEM book, that kid, they're hooked. Yeah. Like, they might be your future scientist, your engineer, your doctor, whatever. Maybe your patent lawyer, So that's why I'm passionate about STEM books for older readers, because, I think like you said, as you get older, it gets so structured in schools that they just don't have time for science, where if they just folded it in with everything else, might work better.
And we're just surrounded by science these days. One of the things I do in my magic shows, because I'm not about standing up there going, look at me, I can do this and you guys can't. I'm so cool. Kids will go, how did you do that? That blows me away. That's really amazing. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you because you'll be really disappointed. But I am going to tell you that you have this thing in your pocket, and this thing to me is magic. Because this thing, I can take a picture and send it to my friend in India, and it gets there instantly. I'm collaborating right now with an illustrator in India, and I'll send her an idea for a picture, and she can send it back in an hour, because it took her 59 minutes to create it, and it only took her a second to send it around the world. And and I always try to get kids to just, you're blown away. I made a stick appear from nowhere. Great. Well, think about what this stuff is doing, this stuff that you can hold and you can be a part of.
Right. And cell phones, I think, are awesome. The nanotechnology, which is the Super Gear book I was telling you about on my our last show, when I talked about super gear in for sports equipment.
Yeah.
It's funny, if you watch golf, they now have holes that are 600 yards long. and you think, you got to be kidding me. You know why? Because of the technology that they have used in the golf clubs, and the golf balls send the balls way farther than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
So, just think about that with kids. You could be a scientist that's what you do. You create golf balls, better golf balls. You create all this kind of stuff. And I just think there's so many more jobs out there that involve STEM. I mean, the whole computer, robotics, artificial intelligence thing, notwithstanding. But wow, there's so many things to do. Yeah. So when we set this up, we set it up monthly. Mm-hmm. So if you want me to go through, I can tell you we started it last October. Mm-hmm. And I can go through some of the topics. So since we're this far into it, probably the easiest thing to do, and I'll send you this link, is to start with our May 2018 one, because I kind of summarized everything we've done so far. Uh-huh. And then you can click on each link as it interests you. And we did this for teachers, because what if they're talking about zoology? They don't want to go through and go, well, where am I going to find this? So we title each month a different thing, and then it's searchable. So last November we did zoology books, and our book of the month was Zoo Scientists to the Rescue by Patricia Newman. December was Science in Fiction books. Not science fiction books, science in fiction, which is a great trend we are starting to see now. Mm-hmm. Little bits of science that weave their way in there. That book of the month was Saving Wonder by Mary Knight. January was Exploration. The book of the month you might recognize is Astronaut Aquanaut.
Ta-da!
You see how that works?
Yeah.
Let's see. February was Wild and Wacky Science. And this one is also by Sarah Albee. She has the most amazing ideas. This is Poison. Deadly Deeds, Perilous Professions, and Murderous Medicine.
Ooh.
See? And that's what I mean. We work really hard on our titles to get people to do that. Ooh, that's intriguing. Mm-hmm. March was Field Work. So it's scientists who go out in the field. So these are real live researchers. And our book of the month was Life on Surtsey, Iceland's Upstart Island by Lori Griffin Burns. And if you want to see some amazing images of Iceland, wow. That is a beautiful country. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's see. April was all about conservation. And this book was Back from the Brink by Nancy Castaldo. And this is about the wolves who the population was really, really low. And it was how the scientists were able to work together to bring them back from the brink of extinction. Wow. Which is something, we should all be working on.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And then May, that brings us to May, which was Cool Inventions and the People Who Create Them. And this one is awesome for kids. This is Alexander Graham Bell for Kids by Mary Kay Carson. And it has 25 inventions or activities that kids can do. So this was just in time for summer. Mm-hmm. So these books, some of them are great. If you have your kids home with you for the summer, or on the weekends, you go, look, take this book. Oh, look, there's experiments.
Hey,
go amuse yourself.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing about that book is parents can introduce kids to Alexander Graham Bell's most famous invention, that the thing that hung on the wall with wires and everything. The kids have no idea what it is.
Oh my gosh, as a side note, have you seen, there is a video of kids trying to figure out how to use a rotary phone? I have never laughed so hard in my life.
I have not seen that. I will, I imagine most of them are going, wait, there's numbers connected. I just push a button on my phone next to my friend's picture and I get connected.
Well, the funny thing is they're dialing it, and the girl goes, "Wait, do you have to keep your finger here the whole way around?" And they finally figured it out, but they didn't figure you had to pick it up first to get the call to go through. Oh, it was the funniest. I was like, "Yeah, that was my generation."
That was me. There we go.
That was us. Go back to your cell phone and how amazing that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, So that is what's going to happen here when Jen comes in. She is going to take she highlighted her year here, but basically take one of the months and just let us know and always reminding us, because this is an evergreen show. So you may be listening. We're debuting this in September of 2018. You may be listening to this in May of 2020, but that's okay because, STEM Tuesday is going to be around. The blog's going to be around. You can go there and click on the current contest, make a comment, get that book, win that autographed book by the author, and find out everything that's going on. So, and that's one of the beauties of STEM. It's updating. It's always changing, but it's always out there.
Oh, I love that. Very good. Yes.
Yeah. So, awesome. So make sure you check out STEM Tuesday. Now, is the address for the blog stemtuesday.com?
It is. You can go to www.stemtuesday.com. Now, it will redirect you because we are part of another blog, which is called From the Mixed Up Files. And that blog actually does fiction and nonfiction middle grade books. So we are kind of, it was create your own or just piggyback on something that's already there. So if you can go there and you can register to get their emails, so you'll get the STEM Tuesday blog every time it comes out. You'll also get all of the Mixed Up File blog, and that talks about a whole bunch of different middle grade and YA books.
Excellent. Well, check it out, STEMtuesday.com, and also make sure you keep your eyes open on the Reading with Your Kids podcast, because Jennifer is going to be a regular guest. Jennifer, thanks so much. I'm looking forward to your next visit.
Thanks. Me too, Jed.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. STEM Week continues with a special episode featuring the host of Exploration Out of Space, and she's also the author of Ada Lace and the Impossible Mission. Emily Calandrelli is going to be joining us. The Space Gal is going to be joining us the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We want to thank Jennifer Swanson for being here today. Be sure to check out her Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read book, Astronaut Aquanaut, How Space Science and Sea Science Interact, and make sure you are here every month for Jennifer's STEM Tuesday segment. Hey, we also want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place, to help your kids feel comfortable with everything that's wonderful around them and some things that aren't so wonderful. Thanks for taking the time to read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.